Join us as we address our good friend Paul Tassi. With all of the rhetoric about Stadia, I think it's about time that we break this all down and give Mr. Tassi an education. Let's get into it.
Not sorry. Stay sick cause I follow my gut. They say I was pushing my luck. I'ma push me a matte all black truck. Oh, I'm not sorry.
What's up, people? What's up, people? What's up, people? It is your boy MM2K back again with another special video for the Stadia Dosage. Please let me know that you guys can hear me. Can everybody hear me? Can you all hear me well? Fine and dandy. I appreciate everybody. Look, man, this is going to be an action-packed Saturday. First and foremost, for those of you that weren't like myself that passed out late last night, drinking drinking Popper 12 and eating a turkey sandwich. If you were not irresponsible like MM2K last night and you got up early, you were treated with a double dose of Chase and our good friend Ray of the Stadia community. They did back-to-back shows, the Stadia Spotlight on Ray, and they also did a weekly Stadia Talk. Man, those were two phenomenal shows. I'll leave a description or a link to those shows. If you're watching this on demand, definitely check those out. In addition to that, later today, I want to promote this before we get into today's hoopla with our good friend Paul Tassi. But later today, here, let me show you guys something. Let me show you something. Oh, it ain't working. Oh, okay. I want to show you something, but it ain't working. There we go. There we go. All right. Okay, let's do a little something like this. You see this? Not too long ago now, we're officially having the Stadia Creators Cup Showdown. That's where a plethora of Stadia creators, and I know, according to Paul in his article today, there's only a few of us. There's only 5 of us, but the few 5 of us times 30 or whatever, all of us, we're going to get together today, and we're having the ultimate PUBG showdown. Okay. My money's on these fine young studs. They're called the TSI Alpha Group. For some reason, I think they're going to win it all. Not because I'm part of the team, but, I just got this feeling that they're going to pull it off. Right, Projekt? But definitely check it out. It's going to be fantastic. There's going to be a lottery that's taking place as far as who's going to be matched up with who. And there's a lot on the line. For instance, TSI, the Stadia Initiative podcast, the podcast that I am thankful and blessed to be part of. We actually aired a show last night. Fantastic show. Check that out as well. There's like 6 of us, so you can only have groups of 4 with PUBG. So they had to split us up into 2 groups, and we had to find 2 alternates. So there's Team Alpha and Team Bravo. So Team Alpha consists of me, Eddie, 6'4", that are part of the Stadia Initiative, and we recruited the mighty Projekt Storm. And Team Bravo consists of Brian, aka Club Stadia, Chase, aka Stadia Talk, and the Superstore Megatron X, and they've recruited the So. He's all right. The Link TV, my homie Link. So we're there's a lot on the line because the de facto leaders of each group, Brian and Eddie, whoever the losing team is, that de facto person has to do a Just Dance video on Stadia. So you definitely don't want to miss all that. So again, I wanted to get to the lighter side of things before we got into the muck that we got to deal with today. It's just par for the course. And like I tell everybody all the time, hey, look, it's not always worth wasting the 240 characters on Twitter to respond to some of the silly stuff that's out there. But when it comes from entities that are part of bigger publications and they have wider reaching ramifications, it can have negative effects on the unsuspecting gamer. I talked about it last night. And again, my friend Paul, because I think he's so detached from the complete situation here with Stadia, he doesn't even realize what he's doing. That's why I'm doing this. He doesn't. If we were talking about Tom Warren, somebody who's just nefarious and has an agenda through in and out, I wouldn't even be doing this. But I wholeheartedly believe, and I'll explain why I wholeheartedly believe that Paul Tassi doesn't fit into that prism. I just think that he's unaware of some crucial things, and we're going to talk about those things, and hopefully it'll open his eyes up and lead to better content. You know what I'm saying? We're not saying, and the content doesn't have to be pro Stadia. You can still hate the damn thing, but because of who you are and where you're writing from, the content at least has to be what? Accurate. So we'll get into all that, but I want to shout out the chat first, man, because you guys are fantastic. Do me a favor, y'all. Hit that hunchback arrow down below, that share button. Let everybody know that we're live. We had a bunch of people in here hours before we went live. We got Raven Anime. Big ups to the homie. Stadia Revolution. So this is going to be interesting. We got the homie KB Ubuntu. So what did he say? I'm going to get into that, my good friend. Project Storm, of course. We got Latif Alabi Oki. What did he say now? This man hasn't learned his lesson yet. Well, we're going to teach our good brother. Who else we got in here? We got Alakazam. Hey, Alakazam's been up since the break of dawn, listening to all this great content. Alakazam, I know you're in for a treat today, my good friend, especially with the tournament. Rick Tone, what's going on? The homie Andy Morphs. Andy, what is going on, good brother? Going on? Are you watching this from a box, Andy? Zero games for me. I'm Phoenix. What's up? We got Marine 699 in the house. In the house. Okay. Let me go back here. Let me do this thing here. Oh, wrong thing that I'm doing there. And then we're going to go and do a little something like this. Okay. So here's the story, guys, for those of you that are interested. Let me see if I can pull it up. Let me do this. I should have done it. Oh, I did have it up, and then things got deleted. My wife called me. I promised her breakfast. You know how that stuff works out, right? Where is, I'm trying to find that article that started all this fun stuff. I'm going to get it, people. Bear with me. Because here's what happened. While I'm looking for the article, let me do this. So we're just not sitting on dead air here. Here we go. Come on, Mouse. Don't mess with me. Bada boom, bot to bing. This is a tweet from the homie Chase, but before we get into that tweet, I want to do this. Here's the article. It's an article from GameSpot. No, GameSpot, you can't send me notifications and throttle my internet. Google Stadia overpromised on its tech, says Take-Two CEO. So Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick says the promise of Stadia was an expanded market, but it fell short of that ambition. All right, so I'm not going to go through the whole article. I'm just going to pick out the nooks and crannies and paraphrase where need be, because the gist of the article is focused on supposedly what Mr. Zelnick says. And basically what he's saying is that he believes in cloud gaming over the long run, but he doesn't believe in it now, particularly with Stadia, because we were all, including them, sold a bag of goods. That Stadia had made promises of an expanded market, and that it fell short of those expectations mainly because the tech was overpromised. All right. And that he made this announcement in front of a bunch of other business people, which is key, which is vital. We talked about this on Stadia Initiative. I'm not going to go too far into it, but he made this announcement in front of other business entities and basically said, hey, look, we got duped. We're not going to support this thing in so many words unless it makes sense to us. So, that's the fact of the matter. And 2K has had some issues. You got the uproar behind 2K, the basketball game, right? Because the whole VLC, whatever the hell you call that stuff, is just abhorrent. But then people are losing saves left and right. You know what I'm saying? So you got that. You got the fact that also too, how can I say this? Mafia 2 was a cash grab. Mafia, the trilogy, was a cash grab. By all intents and purposes, the Mafia trilogy was supposed to come out in August. And I think with COVID, Zelnick and company felt like that they could get some extra money. So they put a horribly buggy product out there to market. It's getting chopped up left and right, but people are still buying it and playing it because this is the era of the patches, and the era of the downloads, and we'll fix it. And, people will just deal with it, right? And we'll still make a lot of money on that. So you got that aboard practices. And with that, I think that, they may have fell flat in some areas financially. And so as a CEO, somebody who has the Fortune 500 experience, I'm going to be the first to let you know. You cannot walk into a room with colleagues despite you missing the mark in some charting revenue-wise. And you can't just simply say, well, I overshot the moon. We thought we were all giddy and excited, and we thought that this thing would grow in popularity more rapidly than it has. You can't say that, because then your business partners are going to look at you and say, hey, you are the home of GTA, one of the best-selling games of all time. You got franchises like NBA, 2K, and, Borderlands that did successful in 2019. You're trying to tell me that a company that is so integral on mind sharing, what people have to say or what's being released about a game, that you reportedly sent goons to the house of a content creator because they were leaking out information about Borderlands that they weren't supposed to, that you were part of that whole fiasco. You're trying to tell me that you guys potentially participated in that, but you didn't have enough sense to do due diligence and say, hold on, let's look at what Stadia is proposing in totality. They're starting off with a limited launch, and this limited launch looks to be more like a paid beta, or more accurately, early access. So if that's the case, how in the hell is this thing going to blossom the way that you expected it to blossom when people already have PlayStation 4s and Xboxes, whether it's the One S more predominantly or the Xbox One? They have a limited library. The access is being limited. How in the hell did you expect this thing to explode? It's not being offered retail. The marketing is limited. And these are all have been signs for real early. These have been signs that were really early into the lifespan of the product, even before the launch. So how are all of those things norms? And 2K, Mr. Zelnick, you weren't aware of that, but 7 months after launch, now you've come to this revelation. But on the flip side, we got Ubisoft, who's telling other people that it may not be doing phenomenal, but it's doing well for us. And they're supporting the platform more than you. So what does it say about you, Mr. Zelnick, that you guys aren't supporting the platform as thoroughly as Ubisoft is? So you haven't lost as much money as Ubisoft has into this, potentially, but Ubisoft is seeing a good return on their investment, or an expected return on their investment, and you aren't. Did you maybe overshoot the moon erroneously? And if you did overshoot the moon erroneously, that puts into question your business acumen. Now, I know I'm saying a bunch of bibble babble, but this is Fortune 500 talk, and this is Fortune 500 talk that someone that works at Forbes, like our good friend Paul Tassi, should be acclimated with. So it's to my astoundment that he would use an article that clearly puts into question Mr. Zelnick's business acumen. That when he would use that to underline an already flawed perception about Stadia and its future. You work for Forbes. You have the weight and the power of Forbes behind you. Someone who has to steal his wife's credit card to buy games, ain't so lucky. How am I with far less resources, able to connect more with reality and have a better business acumen than somebody who writes for Forbes. That's the crux of the issue here, people. And this is the crux of an issue that I don't think that my friend Paul Tassi reasonably understands. I think I'm a pretty good judge of character. I can tell when someone's a shyster, when someone has an agenda, or they're just not connected to reality as much as they need be. I'm not saying that Paul is dumber. Paul is smarter than I am. That's what agitates me more. That someone as smart as Paul doesn't understand the bear trap that he's setting for himself by not doing his due diligence, not vetting information, who can't look past the 5 minutes of now before he spits out this rhetoric, and who is making goof ups like this. You don't use Strauss Zelnick to underline what your false narratives while you still haven't fully educated yourself, when in contrast, you got another CEO, Yves Guillemot of Ubisoft, who they've plugged way more money into Stadia than 2K has ever done to this point. And they've seen the expected rate of return. And this is their business partner. What did you do, Zelnick? Did you do R&D? Did you do research? Was there a checklist in your communication in your board meetings? See, Paul, this is the stuff that I expect you with all your resources to get on the phone and vet before just going to sleep after drinking some wine and saying, I want to write an article. See. But you clearly didn't do that. Because the first thing you would have done is said, let me see if there's contrasting points of views from someone on the same level as Strauss. And guess what? By golly, there are. Yves Guillemot said that our performance, what we're seeing from Stadia is doing fine. And you can't lie like that. He's not lying, and I don't think Zelnick is lying as far as what the rate of return they're seeing. The problem is that Yves is just a better businessman than Zelnick is, clearly. And Zelnick is just fortunate that 2K has some very talented IP and IP developers under their helm. But that has nothing to do with the business acumen of Zelnick. Zelnick just isn't a businessman with a reasonable business acumen. If he was, then he wouldn't have overshot the moon more than Stadia's business partner, Ubisoft. That's a reflection on Strauss, not a reflection on the product. And Paul, you should know this. What are we doing here? What do we do? I don't get this. You're smarter than this, Paul. But this is the tip of the iceberg. This is just the tip. Now, again, let me back up a little bit and just repeat something that I said last night. I don't disagree with Strauss that the rate of the return seen from Stadia right now is disappointing for a lot of people. To say that Stadia didn't underperform, if you believe that Stadia didn't underperform, then you're fooling yourself. Even though I said stuff was limited and everything, and even though I said marketing was limited, and even though I said that the signs were there, that this thing wasn't built to blow up out of the gate, I still think that there was a milestone that they were trying to reach that they simply didn't reach. By all reasonable business acumen research would point to the fact that they were expecting around 2 to 5 million at launch, and they got half that. I think that around launch, they probably had 200,000 active users within those first 30 days. Now, And I think within a 12-month period, they were looking to see at least console numbers. Within the first year, console will see 8 to 10 million. I think that's what they were expecting. We will be lucky to see Stadia hit 5 million unless they got something stupendous in the bag that we couldn't even imagine. Like if it's something on the realm of they were able to buy the exclusive rights to Cyberpunk 2077. Something that out of the conscious, you know what I'm saying? If they were able to do something like that, then yeah. But we'll be lucky for them to hit 5 million within the first year. Now, again, that is coming from someone that loves this platform, that feels that this platform has a very viable future, and I game primarily, if not solely, on Stadia. But I'm using reasonable business acumen to come up with a reasonable business endpoint. And if I can do it, the guy that in order to do all of this, that has to steal his wife's credit card, then goddamn it, Paul, I expect the same of you at least. See, I was going to get here and get calm. But as this saturates on my mind, I just picture me and Paul in a boardroom. And let's just say if we're presenting analysis, because I do data analytics. Say we're presenting analysis to our manager, and Paul puts this as his analysis, and this is my partner that I got to work with. I'm looking at Paul and I'm shaking my head. Like, Paul, you're not in the game, man. What type of research are you doing? So that's where the angst and the frustration is coming from. Paul, you're better than this. This absolutely makes no sense that you go beyond just saying, hey, look, I would have nothing to say if your article was like, Stadia has clearly not met its mark for everyone. Here's proof of that. I can't argue with that. I don't think really anybody reasonably can argue with that. They fell short of the mark. Now, we can then go into tinfoil hat territory. Let's do that. I'll entertain you guys. Let's do it. The hell with it. Some of you may say that the reason why they're falling short is majority because of their communication. Some may say reasonably that the audio didn't match the visuals as far as what the product would be out of the box at launch. I say in contrast, though, that I put Stadia's failures at launch in the 3 buckets. First bucket definitely is the communication. Hold on 1 second. It's siren, y'all. I know they're coming to get me. They're coming to calm me down. They're coming to shut me up. That's the beauty, guys, of living next to a fire hall. The fire hall and the ambulance place is literally right behind my house, and living next to the premier children's hospital on the East Coast, which is Children's Hospital Pittsburgh, where they life flight people in and out. That's one of the beauties that I get to endure every day. But that's all right. We're still gonna do the damn thing. All right. So if we're aware of all that, you know what I'm saying? That, again, it's reasonable to point out that the issues with Stadia have been communication, have been expectations on what would be available at launch. But I'm going to throw in there again 3 buckets. First bucket is communication. The second bucket is what was tangible in people's hands. And then the third bucket, I'm going to say, is the community rhetoric. And that's where Paul fits into. And I'm going to say it like this, which may be controversial to many listening. Most definitely Paul. I hope he's listening. I hope he could bear past all my screaming and yelling because I'm making this video for him. But I break it down like this. I think that 30% was the communication, Now, let me do it like this. Let me do it in chronological order. 10% of their issue was what was available at hand. 30% was the communication. But 60% of why Stadia has had a failure to launch in a lot of aspects is because of the community rhetoric. Now, why do I say that? Bear with me. I personally think that what would make Stadia a better product is better communication. Absolutely. I think what would make Stadia a phenomenal product is a lot more games and better games. Absolutely. But none of that matters as long as the powers that be that have the influence are telling people silly stuff like Stadia has too much lag. Stadia performs only at 20 frames per second. All the games in Stadia are at full price all the time. And Paul hinted at something silly like that in his article, which was a farce. Which is a farce because during Christmas time, Stadia's sales were so deep that Xbox had to emulate them. But again, someone who has the power of Forbes powering his articles refused to do due diligence and find that out. However, a guy that got to steal his wife's credit card in order to play Octopath Traveler was able to do so. And y'all wondering why I get loud and bombastic when I'm talking about Paul Tassi. Stadia's discounts have been so deep, even close to launch at times, that Xbox had to emulate them. You are at Forbes, I'm in my attic, you have the resource of one of the biggest publications in the world, I gotta creep around at night and go into my wife's purse. Something just ain't right. Like, come on, people. And this is at the core of the frustration that many of us have. Because there are many of us that come at you, Paul, that are in the same situation, that don't have the war chest that you have, that are 1,000 times more accurate than you. That's not a reflection on us as you try to play victim in your article. That's a reflection on you. Period. So again, I say 60% on the lamestream media, on the puke pundits, because I get, as one of the most staunchest supporters of Stadia, I get come at all the time. And actually someone that has been groomed in the crumb side, I definitely get come at. I get approached and attacked more than a lot of my peers. DMs, messages, all types of stuff. I put out a tweet about Stadia. Just watch the floodgates happen. But you know what? I stand there and I take it and I deal with it all. It only what doesn't kill you make you stronger. And so you can just imagine in one single day, there will be days that I won't even talk about Stadia. Believe it or not, there's been days I haven't talked about Stadia, and my DMs still have been flooded. My replies still have been flooded on Stadia hate. So therefore, someone that does data analytics, that look at the data of the messages that I received, I've counted 6 out of every 10 responses I get that are against Stadia have nothing to do with the communication. They don't even have nothing to do with the games. But 6 out of every 10 have everything to do with the lies and the misinformation that people like my friend Paul put out there in the airwaves every day. Stadia runs at 20 frames per second. The games are at full price. You had to buy Stadia in order to experience it. You can't play Stadia without a Stadia controller. Stadia said native 4K and they didn't deliver it. There's too much lag. I've even heard ridiculous stuff. someone had mixed up their rhetoric and said that Stadia had a queue and GFN didn't. That's 60% of the stuff that I deal with when people are coming at me about Stadia. Now, that other 40%, the communication and the games, that's not coming from the people that listen to Paul Tassi. That's coming from my fellow friends in the Stadia community. My Swedish game dad, Swedish dad gamers, my Trisurrectors, my Stadia stands, my people that want to have reasonable discourse, and I'm all for that. I love it. Those are the people that are focused on the 40%, but the 40% that's valid. The other 60% are coming from people that don't know what the hell they're talking about. Borderlands 3 doesn't have a performance mode on Stadia. That comes from the ilk of the Paul Tassi crew. Now, it's one thing if we hear the Young Yays, the Dreamcast boys. I'm not going to call them out of their name. That's one thing if we hear them. We know why they're doing it. There is a financial equivalency to them if they do this. But I had Paul Tassi argue with me on Twitter that when I said, look, you guys do this for clicks. And Paul Tassi said, hey, when I do an article on Stadia, I'm doing it for the legitimacy of my journalism. In so many words, I'm paraphrasing here. I'm making fun of you, Paul, but I still love you, my friend. I'm doing this for the legitimacy of my integrity of my journalism. And I said, oh, well, how's that? Well, because when you do a Stadia article, MM2K, you actually get less revenue. Now, I had another response, but I ain't going to get into that. So if that's the case, that makes it even worse, Paul. That you're willing to risk your financial benefit to spread misinformation. You are willing to, again, use Forbes' name. The name of Forbes was synonymous with deep diving and adequate reporting. That's the perception that they have. You're willing to misconstrue that and actually lessen the revenue that they get to spread misinformation. If that doesn't reek that something's wrong, I won't say agenda, but if that doesn't reek that something's wrong, then I can't get through to you if I did this podcast for 90 days straight. That's a reflection on you, Paul. It's a clear-cut reflection on you. Now, again, so it's a fair point to say that Stadia fell short. But when they say things, but the problem with Zelnick said, if what GameSpot is accurate on reporting, and there's questions about that because it's just the way that the structure of the article is. I got my questions, but that's up to Strauss to hold them to task. If he doesn't hold them to task, then we're going to take this as gospel. But here's the problem that I have, is that you said that the tech overpromised. So let's look at what the tech offers. The tech offers you 4K gaming, 60 frames per second gaming. They never said you're going to get both on all games. They never said that the 4K was going to be native 4K, right? They never said that the features would be available at launch. As a matter of fact, Paul, if you did your due diligence that you were supposed to do with the war chest of Forbes behind you, you would have looked at the game. I think it was Gamers Rant video that came out several months before launch, where Phil Harrison sat down with Jeff Keighley, and he said the features would have to be a rollout. See, those of us that stuck with the platform, for the most part, we've done our due diligence. We listened to what was going on because the advertisement was very scarce. So whenever we heard Phil was going to be somewhere, we were there too. We wanted to know what the hell we were getting. And again, I'm not saying that was fine. Definitely, they fell short of that communication, and I bark up their tree all the time about it. With that said, though, There's a difference between bad communication and and misleading communication. And they were just vague on things that they weren't comfortable in being transparent on. They were just very vague. They didn't answer them. And what happened? Because you are the media and you guys are worried about rapid clicks, opposed to vetting things out and maybe taking a little bit of time. Maybe if a news article hits on Monday at 7 a.m., maybe you don't write an article that comes out at 10 a.m. Maybe you wait until 12 p.m. to go vet your sources, talk to some people, and come up with a bigger picture on the story. But no, everything's about clicks. So it's just boom, 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 and I get a whole bunch of misinformation if I'm the unsuspecting gamer. But had you done your due diligence, Paul, you wouldn't be citing all these sites that say there was misinformation because, for instance, Phil Harrison sat down with Jeff Keighley and said the features are going to be rolled out. He said this several months before launch. How did he overpromise? Aren't the features still coming out? Last time I checked, Stream Connect works and it works just fine. It's fantastic. It helps make Division the de facto way to play that game. It's better than any experience anywhere else. Why is it better than console? Because I get 4K 60 with that game. That thing looks marvelous on a web browser. Blows console out of the water. Why is it even better than PC? I ain't got to deal with cheating. And I don't need an expensive ass rig in order to enjoy it. All I need is a web browser and a controller, that neither of which I have to buy from Stadia. So my question to you, Paul, is have you played Destiny 2 on Stadia? Have you at least tried that game on Stadia? No? I mean, Digital Foundry told you they don't believe me, just like you say in your article. If you don't want to believe me, then believe Strauss Zelnick. If you don't want to believe me, believe Digital Foundry. They tell you it's the de facto way to play Division 2. And Paul, I'm willing to bet my right arm that before I'm saying so now, you've never played the damn game on the system. Never. But you got the power of Forbes behind your name. And you wonder why I'm excited. So the problem with what Zelnick had to say wasn't the fact that he was expressing that he was dissatisfied or he was let down by the performance of Stadia. I think it's reasonable for all of us to believe that they fell short of their own expectations in so many ways. But it's the way that he's announcing it. He's absolving himself. Zelnick is trying to absolve himself and any culpability of it. And he reasonably can't do it for the simple fact that there were just too many factors that let people know you are not to shoot over the moon for this thing. That if you're doing this, you're doing it for the culture. You're doing it to help raise up cloud gaming. Because particularly with Stadia, everything is limited. They're tightroping a very slow walk. That was evident from the get-go since March. Over a year later, you're just coming to that realization? That speaks to Strauss's business acumen and his ability to be an effective CEO. And what you did, Paul, is you stained your name and the name of Forbes to underline somebody under that prism. Because Yves Guillemot, just a week ago, all you had to do was Google it just a week ago, Paul, said the exact opposite. And they are a frontline partner with Stadia. They got more money on the wood. So if they're satisfied with the investment and 2K isn't, that speaks volumes that you should have vetted before you wrote that article. But that's not the biggest problem. It's a personal frustration, but it's a free country. It's a free country. And if you feel that I'm personally frustrated, Paul, because I'm of the Fortune 500 world. And I know that what you do is not only a reflection on you, but a reflection of the company that you represent. And you ain't representing Forbes well. I used to get told that all the time. What you do is a reflection on us. Make sure it's right. Make sure it's tight. And you don't take that seriously. And it hurts me. It hurts me as a Fortune 500 colleague. It hurts. But that's a personal thing. Here's where you're hurting the community. Selnick is wrong about the tech being overpromised. But you're boosting that falsehood. You're boosting it and saying, see, I want to be right. Somebody else is saying something bad about Stadia, so they're right. And instead of acting like some rabid animal, just jumping at every shiny thing that entertains you, we expect you, Paul, to vet the sources. And this source ain't right. There was no overpromise on the tech. And you could have taken the time to do some due diligence, carve this article to really hit home your point where you say, I doubt if Stadia's current business model will ultimately see success. And you could talk about how business partners are dissatisfied. That would have been perfect. I wouldn't have agreed with it, but it would have been a perfect article to write. This is astounding that, again, somebody with the war chest and the prestige of Forbes behind them can't see this, but somebody who has to lurk in the night and steal his wife's credit card and come to his musty attic to broadcast to see this. You see how this is a reflection on you, Paul? It is purely a reflection on you. Now, let's address, well, you know what? Let me go to my chat because I babbled a lot. I am babbling a lot. We got the homie Chase of Stadia Talk. He says, MM is spitting that fire. I couldn't hold it in anymore, Chase. I was trying to be nice about this. I wasn't trying to be jagged. But see, one of the things that helped me in the Fortune 500 world is when people were brutally honest with me. And that's why I'm brutally honest. I can take it just as well as I can dish it. So when people say, MM2K, you're too loud. I can't understand you. Why are you always breaking up your phrases? You're a lot smarter than yourself. I take that into consideration. Do I follow it all the time? No, but I'm very self-aware. And Paul, as smart as he is, he's just falling short of the mark of what he's capable of. This makes no sense. Moses Johnson said, my eyes is on Jade Raymond. I love Jade. Yes, I love Jade. Antonio says, hold on, let me move this out of my way. Let me hide this. He says, their development of Baldur's Gate 3 on Stadia because all of the power the system has allows them to create content without needing to optimize their software before running it. Great point. Great point. Marine 6999 says, I have no problem with Stadia ever. Alberto Madonna. India can be interesting if Google has the servers there and Miss Japan, Korea, Mexico, Chile, key markets. Absolutely, I get you. You guys are popping here, and I appreciate all of you guys. And again, share this out, let people know that we're live. Punish Venom, Mike Tendo 27. Why does it even matter? Stadia is garbage anyway. Now, if Mike, if I would have a conversation with Mike and vet out where he bases that off of, he would have told me, hey, 20 frames per second, it doesn't work. the lag. He would have showed me the meme where the our good friend, who was that guy, Chase? I can't remember because you told me that he had a VPN on that messes up. He had an encryption on that messes with streaming. It goes against streaming altogether, games. But he had an encryption on. He was saying he was hitting the space bar for Destiny. He had a whole bunch of lag. And then we had Paul Tassi himself fell into that trap. He treats I have a mesh network and it should have normally worked because it worked with this. No, Paul, you have the war chest and the prestige of Forbes behind you. Somebody again that broadcasts from his musty attic. That I don't get paid to do this. You do. If I can figure this out with a little bit of effort, I expect nothing less of you. We expect nothing less of you. So when you do stuff like, let me see if I can find it. Big ups to the homie Bippity Bop. So when you do stuff like this, where Bippity Bop had to correct you, he said, look, a couple of factual errors in the article. You were never required to pay for the Pro Tier Stadia. You were required to purchase a bundle at one point, which was, of course, counter to the value proposition. And then he follows up, the other one I see frequently, the conflation of delivery method with pricing model. Streaming and subscription are unrelated. For instance, that we all know video on demand services that run a store model, Vudu, a subscription model, Hulu, are both Amazon Prime. In other words, first and foremost, when it comes to Stadia Pro, you didn't have to buy the bundle to get access to it. You could have got access to it with a buddy pass. But you were paying. What they did is they limited access for those that wanted to guarantee have it day one, for you to get the founders and the premier editions, which included the controller and the Chromecast Ultra for $130. So you did have to make an initial investment to guarantee the fastest delivery method of you getting access to this thing. But you didn't have to pay for Pro. You never had to pay for Pro in order to enjoy this thing. After your 3-month free trial of Pro that came with that, whether you bought it or you got a buddy pass, you could have let it lapse and you would have had access to Stadia based on what is regular Stadia now. And all that is void of the free games, it's void of the 4K, and void of the 5.1 surround sound. But if I'm gaming on my PC, do I really care about 4K all that much? A lot of people didn't. If I'm just looking for a delivery method, for me, because I game on the go, 4K isn't important to me. This is right up my alley. So that's fallacy number one in your article, Paul. That's important. You can't gloss over that. That's important. Secondly, why are you comparing apples and oranges? Game Pass and Xcloud, both of Microsoft, are two totally different entities. They're two totally different products. So you don't compare the two. One is a subscription product, one is a streaming product. Stadia is a streaming product. You don't bring up Game Pass and compare it solely to Stadia. That's idiocy. You have the power of Forbes behind. I gotta step away from the mic. You have the power of Forbes behind you. How does this even get written? How? Big ups to Bippity Bop for that. Now, in response, I said this. Yes, comparing a subscription model to a digital retail model is at the crux of the embarrassing false equivalencies made by those who think like Paul. If that was the case, then Steam would be a flop, correct? Because Steam has no subscription model. Everything is sold to you digitally and everything is sold a la carte. So Steam is a failure, right? At the end of the day, people just want good games and the most feasible path to them. So I see Stadia's success to look like this. Now, let me tell you guys a story. I have a friend. Let me do this. Do I still have it on Prologue? Paul claims that there is no market for Stadia. And let me tell you why. That's his opinion. And I'm not mad at him for his opinion. It's just the fallacies in his opinion that he tries to make as fact is the problem. It's not his opinion. He's allowed to have his opinion. He's allowed to have his opinion. As a matter of fact, I say so here. Dear Paul Tassi, despite the victimized rant your editorial implies, we don't get you for your opinion. Frankly, we don't care. We're gamers. We play this way more thoroughly than you. We are educated despite your rhetoric, which you're entitled to. The problem is the misinfo. You have frankly said embarrassingly wrong things. What are those embarrassingly wrong things? They're outlined here by my homie Stadia Stan. You have said embarrassingly wrong things about Stadia to reinforce a flawed narrative. Now you are using a scapegoat attempt from one of the greediest companies to highlight your flawed narrative? Listen to this to better understand, my friend. And I sent him a clip of the Stadia Initiative podcast that we did last night where I talk about that whole article. And all Paul had to do was do what I did. Let me show you how the sausage is made when we do these shows. Let me give you a peer behind the veil. I sent that article to Brian of Club Stadia. We vetted it for hours. Where Brian felt like he couldn't vet it anymore because there's other things he had to do, he said, Moss, can you take the lead on this? Because I know you continued with your vetting. And I said, sure thing, my friend. And that's why I spoke on it during this show. So before we went live with anything, we confirmed that we dotted all of our I's, crossed all of our T's, and we saw what the rhetoric was for at its core. And again, I can't speak for anybody else, but again, a guy that has to creep around in the midst of the night, go to his wife's purse, steal her credit card to play Octopath Traveler. If I can do this better than somebody that has Forbes behind them, access to the war chest, something is clearly wrong with journalism. And that's the point. Something's clearly wrong with it. And he gets paid for this. I don't. This is a side thing for me. I love it, but this is what I do on the side. Paul gets paid for this. Because of that pretense, something is wrong with journalism. Period. You are not taking the time to properly educate yourself. Therefore, you're doing the Forbes name a disservice. And that Forbes name, whether it's correct or not, maybe things have changed there structurally. But as far as what people see Forbes, from what I understand, Forbes is synonymous with finite reporting, accurate reporting, detailed reporting. Maybe for the gaming wing, they just pay you guys in pizza slices and cabbage. And they say, do whatever the hell you want, just talk about games. Maybe that's how it works there for the gaming division. But because they see the name Forbes next to what you do, they're expecting that you do the things that I did with Brian yesterday. The things that I did with Brian yesterday on something I do on the side should at least be done, right, by someone who does this for a living. Am I right or am I wrong? If I am right in the chat, please drop a 1. If I'm wrong, please drop a 2. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. Let me know. Let me know. But that is the crux of the problem, is that you have Joe Schmo out here doing better due diligence than journalists or so-called journalists. That's the problem. Now let's talk about the value proposition, which is all opinion. But I think it also goes to the crux to help Paul understand why his narrative is flawed. Okay? Now, in his article, Paul went through the rigors of justifying and solidifying these farce narratives by Strauss Zelnick, someone who was projecting his own failures to vet the partnership between him and Stadia and how lucrative it would actually be when one of his peers was able to do it accurately and things are working out well for him. But Strauss put out far less money into the game. We all know that. And he's not seeing what he's expecting on his return. You're being that you put that on the pedestal, that you want to appropriate these lies for someone that is projecting and doesn't want to take responsibility and absolving himself from that responsibility. Here's where I'm going to tell you why even your opinion is flawed. It's flawed. It's your opinion. I'm not going to say it's wrong. I'm just going to say it's flawed. Here's why it's flawed. Your opinion is based off the fact that people do not want to separate, that people don't see cloud gaming as enough of a solution to separate themselves from the norms of console gaming. Here's what I'll tell you about that. You, Paul, I, the people in this chat, we represent 5, maybe at best to 8, 10% of gamers. The other 95 to 90% of gamers really give two donkey issues about where they game. They just want to know that they're getting the biggest bang for their buck. And right now, consoles are the biggest bang for their buck. However, if there is an alternative that requires you not to spend additional money on consoles, that you can just buy the games flat out and everything is based on a service where you can get additional free games, and I am a casual gamer, so just for the price of my 2 games every year, along with me getting free games like I see with a PlayStation Plus service or an Xbox Live Games with Gold, and these games are good games that I'm getting for free, and I don't need anything additional. I don't have to buy anything additional in order to get this, opposed to what I'm already paying for the price of Live or for the price of PSN Plus. Just for $10 a month, I can play this from my PC or from my phone or from my tablet, therefore saving me more money, because we're not all rich like my friend Paul Tassi, who gets paid. Maybe he doesn't get paid in pizza and cabbage. Maybe he gets paid the way we think that people that write for Forbes get paid. And because we all don't live as fortunate as Paul does, and so therefore we're counting pennies, right? And any bit of money we can save, we're going to save, right? As consumers, as fathers, as mothers, as parents. If I can get the same experience and I can get great games simply off my internet, I will do it. But besides the rhetoric that comes from the Paul wing of the journalists, the thing that's holding Stadia back is the library that it has. It just doesn't have the library where people will say, you know what? I only got $10 a month that I'm willing to spend on top of the price of my games. I can spend that I can buy Call of Duty, or I can spend that $10 with this one platform that doesn't have Call of Duty, or I can spend my $10 a month with the platform that does have Call of Duty. I'm going with the platform that has Call of Duty. So the issue is not the value proposition. The issue is the catalog. When you even cut past the rhetoric, there just isn't the motivation yet for people to ditch what they formerly done because it's not the best way for them to get their gaming experience. The games that they want to play, the games that 90% of people play, just aren't available on Stadia, period. When that changes, the value proposition changes. To believe anything else is silly. The casual gamer gives two cow donkey dongs about a console war. They do not make up the 5 to 8% like me and you, Paul. They just want reasonable access to the games they want to play and get the biggest bang for their buck. Right now, the biggest bang for their buck is for them to pay the $300 for a PlayStation 4 or an Xbox One S, because that grants them access to all the games they want to play. But if a platform that has those same games that 90% of the people play has it without that additional cost, it will skyrocket. Whether that's Stadia, Bethesda, or Media. So your argument at its core is farce. It's based on an elitist state of mind for someone that may not have to count pennies. But I can tell you this, as someone who is a gamer and a parent, who has to go through the crux of not only buying a console for myself, but buying a console for my kids, because I don't want them touching my stuff, whether it's Stadia, Bethesda, or Hadia. As long as they got them games there, they're getting them there, and then my kids are not going to be mad because they're going to have access to that stuff there. So the very elitist line to say that I don't see the business proposition because people won't be willing to spend a couple of $100, that's an elitist state of mind. Paul, you reek with the stench of elitism. And I'm glad you've been blessed with Forbes backing you like that, to where you can even walk in that bubble. But it's a blessing and it's a curse, because this is the internet and these words go nowhere. And it just shows how out of touch you are with the other 90% of gamers. Let me give you another example of why you're out of touch. The simple fact that you continue to use Destiny 2 as a litmus of the performance of Stadia. Now, Stadia has since removed this because I think it was making some of the other games on this platform look bad, like Destiny 2. But Destiny 2 was not even of the top 2 games on the platform. It wasn't even of the top 3 games on the platform. It wasn't even of the top 4 games on the platform. You want to know what the top 4 games were? Red Dead Redemption 2, Borderlands 3, The Division, and PUBG. Destiny 2 is an acquired taste. It has a very large cult following, but it's not a game that's going to be appealing to everybody. We kept telling you this, Paul. We kept telling you this time and time again, time after time. We kept telling you, and you kept ignoring it. Now, in the tablet of the internet, in the tablet of time, The idiotic comments of using Destiny 2 as a litmus is now there because we took a snippet, even though Stadia took it down, we took a snippet of that most popular snippet. And maybe they put it up there by accident. Maybe they were testing it out. And maybe it's going to be out in the future. But all it takes for you, Tom, is to pick up the phone and call Google or call somebody and talk to them about this stuff. I'm pretty sure they'll share it with you. They shared it with us on some occasions. What specifically, I won't get into all that. But you're trying to make right a narrative that just doesn't fit. You're trying to put a square peg into a circle hole. And the more and more you do that, the more and more crazier you look, and the more and more you're bringing down the Forbes name with you. It may not come crashing today. It may not come crashing tomorrow. But when this thing turns around, using the business model that they have, but by simply getting more games, this is going to be a reflection on you. And I'm saying this, Paul, I urge you, before everything crashes and burns, please do yourself a favor, do Forbes a favor, and simply stop. Because I'm going to tell you what, when you sit there and you make falsehoods and your reporting makes falsehoods that has wide-reaching ramifications, numero uno, that hurts the unsuspecting gamer. The ones that you apparently don't care about with your elitist state of mind. I've seen that elitist state of mind harden them firsthand. People that couldn't afford an expensive rig were told Stadia was garbage, but get your game on GFN instead, because GFN is the real future for cloud gaming. And they got said game on GFN that was available on Stadia. They got it at a discount, okay. But guess what? Moments later, GFN had it yanked. And these people reached me in the DM and they said, MM2K, I am angry. I listened to so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so. And they told me that Stadia was a farce. And I listened to them. And I went and bought the game on GFN. And now I don't have access to it. I have no other way to play it because I don't have a powerful rig. I don't have the money for it. But I love gaming. I'm a gamer, but I'm a father of 5. I got to work 3 jobs. I got to do this on the fly. I just don't have the resources. Are you saying, Paul, forget about those people because they're on hard times because they don't write at Forbes like you? I'm going to close out with one more story what you believe is a farce. Now, I have a friend. He's well-to-do. IT guy, works with us. I'm real close to our IT people. We would send this guy out like twice a month to different parts of the country to do, to fix things, right? Go to our different satellite areas and fix things. This guy is a serious ARC player. He loves ARC survival. But ARC is horribly optimized, even on PC, even on the strongest PC, so it's horribly optimized. So in order to play ARC, my friend, what he would do, because he can't lug around his desktop everywhere. He just can't do it. He got to go fly on wheel. Excuse me. What he does is every town that he goes into, he goes to Best Buy, buys a brand new rig, takes it to the hotel or wherever he's at, hooks it up, plays ARC. Then when he's about to leave, he just packs everything up, sends it back to Best Buy, and they pay the repackaging fee. They minus that, and that's his rental service that he rents the desktop. And then he travels on to the next city. Now, imagine a situation where just for $10 a month, my friend, all he got to do, not even $10 a month. It depends on how he wants to play it. But just for the price of the game, Paul, he could travel city to city, just hook it up to a laptop or take his Chromecast with him and just hook it up to the TV in a hotel. And there are a lot of people like that. So this is a value for the travel gamer. someone that's just as fortunate as you. So not only do you have an elitist state of mind, Paul, but you're detached from even the elitist. And I get there's other people in the content creation world that are spewing the same idiotic notions as well. So we're not going to lay this all in your lap, but this is a conversation directly with you. But this is where Paul has to look in the mirror and say, am I one of those people that think the world revolves around me? Or am I going to take this as an opportunity to look at how the world rotates and moves in totality? And Paul, I think deep down inside, you had that you had that capability, but you're just stubborn. And I've had to mentor people like you. You're just stubborn. But your stubbornness will not continue to be the downfall of the unsuspecting gamer. That has to stop. And when you stop contributing to that, we stop responding to you, period. Not when you go and write these articles and try to play the victim. Not when you try to go pull up false notions by people that are trying to project their flawed behaviors on Stadia because they didn't do their due diligence, so they overshot the moon. Not when that happens, but when you stop contributing and writing articles full of false information, then we'll stop. And I said from your boy, MM2K, I went way over what I was supposed to because I got to practice for a tournament. But with that said, let me check out everybody real quick. YDB Gaming says, yes, I do, because it took me so long to try it out. Was told the time Stadia doesn't work yet. I played it, worked amazing. There we go. Says, yup, I had an Xbox One X, but after playing my friend Stadia, that was all a wake-up call. Hey, peace out, Marine6999. Peace out, my good friend. Says all Stadia need is see Call of Duty, that you will see the numbers go up, free to play MMO. Yeah, exactly. That's the Achilles heel of the platform right now. But no, I'm lying. You got people like Paul out here that are spreading misinformation. I think Paul is doing it not because he has an agenda. He's stubborn on his point, but I think Paul does this unknowingly. I don't think Paul does this like how Tom Warren does it. Tom Warren just has an agenda. I don't think Paul has an agenda, but because Paul doesn't have an agenda doesn't mean I'm going to be nice and smooth with him and stroke his mane. Oh, hell no. He had to get this work today. He had to get it because he's too smart for this. So it seems like the tech is just fine to me because Stadia plays smooth as hell and looks good as hell too. Absolutely. Yeah, man. So I appreciate everybody. I appreciate it. Thank you, Marine. I know you had to roll. I appreciate it. McSetty, he says, that's your man, Stan, buddy, not Bippity. Phoenix, you use 5 gigahertz. And if the stuttering, it's an issue that I hope Google will fix over time. Let me see. And there is a great user guide on Reddit too. Somebody can send that to Phoenix too. A great user guide. Moses Johnson says, when MM2K is loud, it means the media isn't doing their job, period. Thank you. Thank you. And again, I know that's comical in some, but no, it's the truth. I get frustrated when I see smart people doing dumb things. And Paul Tassi's a smart guy. He's just doing dumb things because I don't care what benefit he thinks he's getting now. This is not going to age well for him. This clearly is not going to age well for him. It's going to look bad. Under no circumstances do you use Strauss Zelnick and his projection of not trying to admonish his culpability here. You don't use that to underline your point. If you'd done your research, you would have seen that Yves said the complete opposite. And Yves would have a better knowing of what's going on, but Yves didn't overshoot the moon. Period. Google is bad in communication, will never play dirty as Microsoft, like sell well media and lobbies to another enter in his castle. They might have to do it. But with that said, I want to thank everybody for coming out, man. I just had to respond. I had to put my words, and I was going to be a lot calmer about this, but I just couldn't because after letting it soak on the brain, it's just irritating. Not because you don't like Stadia. You ain't gotta like Stadia. I don't care. But stop doing a disservice to the unsuspecting gamer. Just stop, Paul. Like, for instance, I can't stand the thought of VR at this moment. But if you look at my screen, let me show you guys something. You see this tab up here? This was just, I'm going to click on that tab. This is just many of the research items that I went into. I did massive research on this, and I got a whole bookmark folder into this stuff. I've thoroughly vetted this stuff for days, and I finally dropped the video on it afterwards. It wasn't a race to first because I cared about the people listening to my content. And there's clearly that lack of concern there, and they think that's okay because they don't like the product. He's not the only one. They think it's okay to not be factually precise because they don't like the product. They say, I don't like it, it don't matter. But again, that's an elitist state of mind, and it's disconnected from reality. And it's only going to be a reflection on you and Forbes in the long run. So I urge you to stop for yourself, but I'm letting you know that every turn that you make when you do this, we will be there because you're no longer going to do the unsuspecting gamer disservice, period. And that's it from your boy. I appreciate all of y'all for coming through. Thank y'all so much. Stay tuned to our PUBG tournament. It's going to be action-packed. Until then, have a wonderful, wonderful gaming day. Peace.
Stay sick cause I follow my gut. They say I was pushing my luck. I'ma push me a matte all black truck.